too.
Okay. Hello. I want to say something out loud I've never said before, but I've made a mental note of a lot lately. And I've sat down and prayed a lot, but I have not one time in my entire life sat down while saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I wonder why that is. I have a theory, but that's not what we're talking about. But just something that fascinates me. I've never seen anybody sit down and say the Pledge of Allegiance, ever. But I'm here to talk about anchor babies, which actually, as Jim said, it is becoming a hot subject in this country. And what an anchor baby is a child born in the United States to parents who are illegal immigrants, who are here illegally. And they call it an anchor baby. Sometimes it's called a jackpot baby too, because the child is instantly given citizenship in the United States, which immediately makes that child eligible for aid to families with dependent children, and then onward from there, a whole slew of benefits. You know, the mother gets immediate health care for the birth of the child, and ongoing health care if there's a problem with the child. And then as the child gets older, when the child turns 21 years old, the child can be a sponsor for his family and extended family. Okay? So that child, as a citizen of the United States, can sponsor other people to make, if they're here illegally, make their illegal status legal, and if they're in another country, to help bring them here legally. So an anchor baby is a good thing to have if you want to come to the United States, which everybody does. And to sponsor somebody, I looked up what that means. To sponsor somebody means that you have to be able to provide 125% of income above the poverty line for a person, and make sure they have a place to live and everything. And I remember, you know, my dad, who is an immigrant that came through Ellis Island, I remember him telling me about his aunt that sponsored him. And, you know, he said that exact same thing to me. So that hasn't changed. Okay, there are 300,000 to 700,000 anchor babies born every year. There's no exact amount, but the number is increasing. It's you know, pretty much double, but we don't know because they're born of illegal immigrants. But if we've got between 300,000 to 700,000 babies, we are now supporting. That is every year. That is adding to our population. So, you know, in 10 years, we're looking at I'm not good at math. 5 million people. 5 million people. So it is a big deal. So how do we get to the place where if you're, you know, just born in this country, regardless of your parentage, you become a citizen? It wasn't meant to be that way. And so I'm going to go back, and it started with the Dred Scott decision. You hear people talk, the left talk a lot about Dred Scott and going back to Dred Scott and Jim Crow. Well, Dred Scott versus Sanford was a Supreme Court decision that came out in 1857. And Dred Scott was a slave, and his owner was in the military, so his owner took him around to free states and slave states. Okay, so he went into free states. So when his owner died, his wife inherited him as part of his estate. And she used to rent him out. It's really interesting reading about her, how she would rent him out as if he was a building or something, you know. I mean, he was just a piece of property. And so he sued for his freedom. She would not allow him to buy his freedom, so he sued for it because he had been in a free state, and by law he thought he was free. The outcome of that decision was, first of all, he couldn't file a lawsuit because he was not a citizen of the United States. Okay, and as a citizen of the United States, he had 0 rights. And not only was he not a citizen, he was a piece of property, and the United States government could not remove property from a person without due process of law. And that was the Dred Scott decision, which was one of the worst decisions ever made in this country, and it helped precipitate, just cause chaos across the country and helped precipitate the onset of the Civil War. So the Civil War was 1861, this decision, 1857, Civil War 1861 to 1865. So after the Civil War, then we go get the 14th Amendment. And the 14th Amendment pretty much was, well, it wasn't designed, but what it did was overrule Dred Scott. It gave citizenship to all the slaves and said that, this is what it says exactly, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. The big, glaring neon sign here is subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which at the time meant a person who was born gave their full allegiance to this country. Okay? That means subject to the jurisdiction thereof by the Supreme Court. Now I've come up with my own definition of jurisdiction, which actually has always worked for me, and it's the power to act or the power to take action. So a person or a place or a thing has jurisdiction over you or a thing if that person has the power to take action in regards to you. So by giving, the United States government has limited jurisdiction over aliens. They're free to leave the country and go back. When this bill was introduced, the senator that introduced it said specifically, this will not include persons born in the United States who are foreigners, aliens, or who belong to families of ambassadors or foreign ministers. So it specifically stated that those people would not be granted citizenship by virtue of their birth. Okay, and then another senator said, a foreigner in the United States has a right to the protection of the laws, but he is not a citizen in the ordinary acceptance of the word. So another way to say this 14th Amendment is if you are, born or naturalized and not subject to foreign power. If you are subject to foreign power, you cannot, claim allegiance to this country. And think about it. I mean, I grew up in Southern California, and I know so many Mexican Americans who are legal, but their parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles are Mexican citizens, and that's where their allegiance lies. And Mexico loves that. Mexico wants a huge population of American citizens who have allegiance to Mexico. They just